Hello class, this is Mr. Lun, and I want to do a video demonstration on the figure 2. I was doing it again, make sure I have a fresh idea of how to do these drawings. I can get a general idea by looking at them, but it is always best practice to do as you teach. So, what we're going to do, and just quickly, you'll see on my side I have a folder called a Revolve tool and IED. So in class, we talked about this. You should have a folder. Some of you may have called it sophomore year. Some of you may have called it second year. Some of you probably did call it IED. You want to be able to distinguish between your years of schooling so that when you look in the future, you can pretty easily find all your stuff. So, that being said, this folder you should never have models in. This folder should only, or this project should only have folders and then the template. My template is in a different project because I made it. I could re-upload it to here so it looks exactly like how yours should. I might, but in our case, we had a new project, or not project, assignment for the Revolve tool. So it was a new folder, and we named it Revolve tool. So in here, when you're done with it, you should have 2 figures. You see both of them are done. I have done both of them, but figure 2 specifically is a pretty complicated sketch. So I just want to make sure that you guys have a good reference, and you guys are used to the videos. So I realized it would be best for me to make one because Mr. Hughes does not do this model with his student. Honestly, I don't know what he does model-wise for his students there, but this model is one that I learned Revolve tool with, and I think it is a really good way. So we made a new design, and honestly, before we even move forward into making a sketch, I'm going to open up document settings. So it says inches, because that's what our default is. We're going to click on this, and instead of inches, I'm going to make it a millimeter. Just because all the numbers in our sketch are very large, and I feel like it's much more likely that it's intended to be millimeters. I'd be pretty surprised if, I'm pretty sure this is a candle wick, if a candle wick was 220 inches long, or high, tall. So let's change it to millimeters, just to make our numbers look a little better. If you model this in inches and do all the same numbers, that's fine. You are showing that you can make the sketch, you can make the complicated arcs, and that is all I'm looking for. You're showing you can use the Revolve tool. That being said, we're going to start. Every time you start, you press Create Sketch. When using the Revolve tool, you're really only clicking these 2 planes, or one of these 2 planes. It is pretty rare that you're going to need something to revolve down here. Most of the time, you're revolving around pretty much this axis. So what I'm going to do is just click this one. It doesn't matter which one you click, your model will look the same afterwards. So the method that I like to do with complicated shapes, or shapes that have complicated geometries, is just to make the general shape. Right here I am very, very off with how this looks. And this is, but that being said, if I told you all to just make the general shape, you'd be decently confused still, because what about these semicircles? Another word for semicircles, arc. If you click on this arrow, the create, you see there's an arc tool. I'm going to choose 3-point. You can use any of those, to be fully honest, but 3-point is a little bit easier because we're able to just start point, end point, and then where's the arc go? So one thing, and why honestly, the big reason why I made the video here is I want to just explain these constraints more. So these constraints, there's a bunch of them. These constraints basically tell Fusion that you want to force certain geometry properties onto lines, arcs, points, anything. So that being said, right here, so in our drawing, it is saying that all three of these points are vertical with each other, so stand vertical, middle point, and this. Nope, it's saying it's over constrained. We don't need to do anything more. So I'm just going to do that preemptively, because later on, when I start dimensioning this, this center is not guaranteed to stay vertical. It might move inwards, it might move outwards. I'm going to make a straight line into another arc. 3-point is probably the easiest one here. Start point, end point, edge. As you see here, the first one I put down, it already was vertical. This time it's not, so I'm just going to click on those two. And then this and that. I was doing that to make sure they're all on the same line. When we start dimensioning, it will force it to stay all in one line. If I click line again, so now here, I'm also going to introduce you guys to some new tools. I'm going to pan down a little bit. Some new tools, I'm going to do my best to keep this straight. And I'm going to make a 90-degree line, or 90-degree angle instead of the curve. Because I'm going to show you guys a new tool in a second when we start dimensioning. A new arc, start point, end point, curve. For the most part, I'm trying to mask the shape a little bit. And once again, this center point should actually be vertical with that. And that looks very wrong, but hopefully, and sometimes it doesn't work out the way you plan, hopefully that will look correct afterwards. We have a completed sketch. However, it looks nothing like we're trying to do. So also, if you see me just switching between commands, I instinctively like using, not commands, but things. I like using the hotkeys. For dimension, it's D, line, it's L, T is trim. So I'm actually going to dimension this big one right here, and it's supposed to be 220. And I scaled everything up. It even moved our view with us, which is really nice. I'm going to bring this down, and this dimension on the bottom is supposed to be 90. And the only problem with this method is that sometimes things will just kind of freak out. So just kind of play around with it a little bit. Pull it up, pull it up, pull it up. There you go. If you need to, you can just make this a little smaller. And that looks a little bit closer to what we're looking for. That's a little bit closer to what we're going for. This top dimension here, we actually want to be 20. Actually brings everything down, which is really nice. And the reason why is that we have all these vertical constraints. If we didn't, this line would still be out here, this line would still be out here. So sometimes it just works in your favor to make things, just to go out of your way and do that. The radius of this should be 10, and the radius of this one should be 20. And if we look in the drawing, it's actually saying that this total distance should be 40. And so far, as you see, all these lines are actually black, so we're doing very well with our constraints. Now here, I'm actually going to make this curve here. So if you look over here in the modify, these are all pretty fun tools. And a really nice thing is how they're designed is that the little illustration does actually show you what it's going to do. The blue parts are what it does. It's saying that if you have these two perpendicular lines and you use fillet, it's going to make a blue curved line between them. And from here, you just put in your radius. We're going to do 60. And there you go. Instead of our 90-degree lines, now we have this nice curve at 60. We do have a dimension from the center to the very bottom of our candle wick. This is actually decently close, but it's only supposed to be at 80, not 85. And looking at our sketch, we only have one more blue line. And ironically, because of all of the constraints we've done, we didn't even have to make it. 3D modeling is a very methodical process. That being said, there are multiple ways you could have done this. You could have done it line by line, then make an arc, make a circle, make sure all the stuff is vertical with the constraints, draw another line, draw another circle, make sure it's constraints, and you can dimension it as you go. Personally, this is how I like to do it, mostly because I am comfortable at the point where I'm very comfortable with just putting constraints down. Because as you saw, by the time we got to the very last thing, there was only one possible way for this arc to actually work, was that, and it would only work if this is 12.5. If I press Finish Sketch, and I'm going to press the Home button, this is the isometric view. We actually see on our front plane our sketch. Now we're going to press Revolve, and I'm going to click the center line. So one thing, clicking the right line is very important. As you see, you can click any vertical line that you want. Not vertical, straight line that you want, it will make it. So sometimes if you're trying to make a bowl or a fancy bowl, this ironically would have worked. Home button. But in our case, we want a candle wick where the center line is this very long one. I'm just clicking those just so you guys can see. A big part about, I don't think I can do that, can I? Nope. So it's not any vertical, like any straight line. But you can click on any and it can change the general shape. That being said, our candle wick is rotated or spun around this line. And you just press OK and we're done. There are some things we can do. So we can actually right click on this drawing and go to physical material. Candle wicks are normally made out of something like copper, so let's see if we can have, just for some fancy. So for brass is a good one. We'll make it brass, and there you go. That looks pretty similar to how a candle wick should look. Let's say a big thing on why so on the paper why it looks a little different than this is genuinely just one, it's a screenshot from a different CAD software, and two, it's an old screenshot. Instead we have our candle wick, and we can just press save. Candle wick. You can name it Figure 2, name it Candle Wick, it's your choice. I hope that this helps clear out how to do this. If not, maybe you can watch it again, maybe just call for help. If there's any other questions, once again, watch the video again or ask for help.